Hello my friends and welcome back. It is Wednesday, so happy Wednesday to you. Some of you write to me in the comments that you wouldn't actually know what day it is unless I tell you, because I know some people have different schedules and in some areas of my life I don't know what day it is. So it's good if somebody tells me happy Wednesday. We go to Russia, my friends, because the southern military district started their nuclear training exercises. Now, these are not just any training exercises. These are the nuclear strategic forces of Russia conducting their training exercises, which means they are actually installing nuclear warheads on Iskander missiles and on Kinzhal missiles. Iskander will be launched from the ground, Kinzhal will be launched from the plane, and they will have nuclear missiles on them. Of course, they will not launch the nuclear missiles, but they're testing out a dry rehearsal, so to say. Now, this is all part of the nuclear blackmail that Putin is doing. Somebody showed me a list about a year ago of all of the Russian officials mentioning their nuclear capabilities and using them against the West. And it's like every 3 days in the full-scale invasion, some Russian official, Putin, Shoigu, or Lavrov, foreign minister, is mentioning that we are a nuclear power and we can push the button if we want to. Now, there is a catch in this, because Russia actually has a nuclear doctrine. It's not about Putin pressing the button, not at all. In Russia, the doctrine is a lot different. You can only use a nuclear weapon if Russian territory is invaded, and not only invaded, but big time. If the enemy has penetrated into the depth of the Russian Federation, that's on the doctrine. Not just penetrated over the border onto some border oblast, but into the depths. Then Russia can use a nuclear weapon as a defensive measure. Because nuclear weapon is not an offensive measure in the Russian doctrine. Also, they don't have the first fire doctrine, meaning they cannot fire a nuclear weapon first. They have to react with it. Different countries have different doctrines, but that's Russia's doctrine. Also, the doctrine states that not one person can do it. It's not Putin's decision. There has to be many yeses in a row. It's like a fail-safe mechanism. And not one, not two, but even more high officers who have to approve it. And Putin does not have that power. Up until now, he has not taken that power. So don't be afraid of nuclear war. I'm not afraid. You should not be afraid. Fear is the biggest gift to Russia. My friends, now I bring to you, and I kid you not, Rambo. Russian Rambo. Or Ruski Rambo. Look at it. It's a Russian dude with a bow and arrow somewhere in probably the southern or eastern front. And we have a video also. I don't know if we can show it. But this bow and this arrow has an explosive on the top. So it's pretty much just firing a grenade. If you have fired an arrow that has some weight attached to the top, for some reason I have done it many times, then you know that it doesn't really fly far. It's just boom. It's very short. But it's almost as good as throwing the grenade yourself. But this is more stylish. You get the style points. Now we also have the video. Look at the dude. Rambo. In full effect. Although he's lacking the muscles of Sylvester Stallone. But he got the bow. He shot the thing and bada beam. It goes off here. Now this is so close I could throw the grenade here and I wouldn't need the bow. So in any way this weapon is ineffective. But it looks cool. You get the style points. My friends, Gazprom, the Russian energy giant and the biggest stakeholder in that company is the Russian Federation. Gazprom is done. They're doomed. They are having their worst year since 1985 because they are exporting right now the same amounts of energy carriers as 1985. We're not going to 2014. We're going to 1985. It is so bad. They just took a massive loss of 1.6 billion of pure loss. And 2 days ago, Monday, was the time when they were supposed to be paying dividends. Now, we cannot forget, yes, Russia is at war and they're heavily sanctioned, but Gazprom still has shareholders, massive amount of shareholders. The biggest one, of course, is the country itself, but they have to pay dividends for these shareholders, and there's a date for that. And if they fail, and they did, they defaulted on paying dividends or just outright refused to pay dividends. Why? Because the pure truth is there's no liquidity. There's no liquid assets to pay the dividends. The Russian Federation, for its war effort, takes all the liquidity from the Gazprom away, all the money, they will need it. So there's no buffer of like 100 billion in cash. There's no buffer in Gazprom. So no dividends, a net loss of 1.6 billion USD. I mean, they have hit the peak last year and now they're going down. Now Putin is aiming to make up for the loss of exports to the European Union with India and China. But with China, you could, but you got to build out the Force of Siberia pipeline with China. And Putin was hoping that Chinese are ready to pay for at least half of it. But China gave a big middle finger saying they don't want to invest any money to the project. And building that out takes years, if not a decade. And Russia has to pay for it. And we're not talking about a few billion, we're talking about tens of billions before Gazprom or Russian Federation can even start exporting bigger amounts of gas to China. So any people saying, oh, China will buy most amount of gas, you got to build out the infrastructure, you got to invest tens of billions, and then you got to sell it to China with a huge discount. So China is not the answer. India is not the answer because they will buy huge amounts with huge discounts, not making even quarter of the revenue that European Union was paying to Russia. So yeah, simple as that. Gazprom now is pretty much screwed. If the sanctions continue and if they cannot export to Europe, their loss will only increase year by year and they will have to close oil wells. There is an issue with oil pipes. If you stop pumping it out of the ground and the pressure falls in the pipes, there's going to be huge issues. It's just like, oh, let's produce a little bit less raw oil. Let's pump it out less. You cannot decrease pumping out oil and then increase it back later. If you decrease it, you got to rebuild some entire systems later if you want to increase it. So the decrease in pumping out oil will be incredibly costly. And since most of the oil infrastructure in Russia is built by the Western companies and experts, they cannot risk decreasing that. Russia has not built out their oil storage facilities because they have always exported oil as soon as it's out of the ground, because they're a gas station and every country in the world almost was interested in buying before. Now they're not interested in buying, and it would be great if they would have huge storage facilities, which they don't, because building them out also takes a decade and tens of billions. So they're pumping it out for nobody right now. For the ships, they're putting it on the ships. I kid you not. They have their shadow fleet with the containers. They're just pumping it on those ships. They're all full. So they got to decrease the pumping out of the raw oil, which means it's bad. You got to rebuild some infrastructure after that. So I don't see a world where Gazprom is coming back from this if the sanctions continue. My friends, democracies are slow. Everybody knows this. Authoritarian countries are faster because one man or a group of people can make decisions faster because they hold power. Democracies are slow, but when they do pivot, you cannot go against them because the economic might is just so damn powerful. This is what we see with the ammunition production of European Union and Canada and United States combined. They take time. Everybody is on edge. Why are they taking so slow? We need 3-4 million per year of these countries combined of 155 millimeter ammunition, artillery shells. And they're only pumping out close to 1 million, even less than that right now. But these numbers, if you look at the charts, they're steadily increasing. And much like democratic countries in the Second World War, once they get their economic might, slowly, step by step, behind the war industry, on the war footing, there's no going against them. You cannot win. It's not possible. Just the economic might, every war is a war of economics, is incomparable to Russia. And even Russia and China combined, if you put against them European Union plus United States, still, there's no comparison. I'll read you a report about the ammunition production so you get a more of an idea of how much these numbers are increasing and that they are steadily increasing. Since raising ammunition production is an incredibly difficult thing to do, much easier is to make drones en masse, cheap kamikaze drones, than to produce 155 millimeter artillery ammunition in mass. You got to open up an entire new factory with the logistics chain, and they take a lot of raw materials. And it's not just only molding metal. It has to be a metal material that you can fire and that can explode. And there cannot be any mistakes because it's a weapon. It needs to work. It's robust. Cannot have even a few millimeters of difference in molding these shells because the barrels will explode. I mean, this thing, it's one of the hardest things to increase in production. The pre-war aggregate annual output capacity from European 155mm manufacturers is less clear, with maximum estimates at over 450,000 split across. Germany, 100,000 shells per year. Sweden, 100,000 yearly. Spain, 150,000. Norway, 20,000 per year. France, 15, and Poland, 30,000 per year. And there's UK and Czech Republic. That's pre-war. Despite many practical problems, political squabbles and delays, NATO-wide 155mm shell production is already showing results. Rheinmetall's output is expected to hit 450,000 rounds per year by the end of 2023, helped by its acquisition of one of Spain's two main producers. Saab will likely reach 200,000 mark. The Czechs expect to hit 150,000 in 2024. It's a mistake here. Poland, 40,000. Meanwhile, America's rapid output growth is set to reach 360,000 155mm made in 2024, while a new Rheinmetall factory in Australia will be turning out 100,000 of these rounds per year. So each of these companies and countries I listed before has had almost a 100% increase in production, although about 1,000% increase is necessary. Still, they have been able to almost double their production within a year or 2 years. And this chart will continue to grow like that. You gotta give time to democracies. But when they do it, they do it. Now, my friends, great news from the European Council, European Union. It is now official that the Russian assets of 300 billion held in the European Union, the profits that these assets have generated over 2 years, 300 billion, huge amount of money, always generates profits with interest. The profits is about 5 to 7 billion altogether, just the profits. They now will be sent for Ukraine needs. For economy or for weapons, we don't know yet. But the European Union has decided officially and legally that this money, the profits, will be sent to Ukraine. So Russian assets are in Europe. They are not being detained yet for Ukraine, but they're generating pure money for Ukraine, which can be used to buy weapons. So the weird situation is that Russian money in Europe is buying weapons for Ukraine. And this is beautiful. And this is how it should be. In this week, and Saturday and Sunday combined, so last 5 days actually, Ukraine has been able to sink or damage 2 Russian missile carriers in the Black Sea. And one of them was Zyklon, the newest Russian missile carrier, given to the Navy in 2023 summer. So now Russian Black Sea Fleet is in a situation when they only have 10 caliber cruise missile capable carriers left. Only 10. They used to have over 20. Half of them have been eliminated, half more. If Ukraine continues, then attacks on Odessa and Ukraine's southern coastline by caliber cruise missiles, these attacks will lessen, they will decrease. And this is why Ukraine is hunting down these ships, one by one, turning them into a submarine, because directly, every one of these ships damaged or sunk equals a Ukrainian civilian life saved. Because they fire the missiles. If you don't have these ships, it's not like you can fire these missiles from anywhere else. It's not that easy. It's not that simple. You take away the launchers, like Iskander launchers from Crimea, or the cruise missile carriers from the Black Sea, cannot fire any missiles. Then it's only Shahed drones, and Ukraine can manage those. About a week and a half ago, there was a huge attack in Lugansk against a Russian Internal Affairs Ministry Police Academy. Now, we didn't know what happened or who got knocked out cold. Now we do know. There's official reports out. French Scalp missile was used. It was in Lugansk, and 13 Russian personnel got knocked out cold. 22 got wounded, including Colonel General Gennady Anashkin. So very high-value targets knocked out cold in their own academy. The Moscow Times reported that the Russian Federation will nationalize 13,000 real estate properties in occupied Ukraine. Now, the Russian Federation claims that these properties only will be nationalized if they have been empty for years. But actually, if analyzing the data of which properties are seized, 80% of them had Ukrainian inhabitants before the war, And 80%, they are in very nice neighborhoods. So the best apartments and houses will be, let's be honest, pretty much stolen and given to Russian officers. It's theft, nationalization, the same that the Soviet Union did to all of the Soviet countries. It took the best properties and gave them to party officials. And also in Ukraine, they stole the grain, the food in Holodomor. They nationalized it, as they called it. So this is the same country-level theft going on in Ukraine, not only on washing machines, but on real estate. And the soldiers and the officers will get it. My friends, the United States has made an offer to Georgia. Now, I cannot say if this offer is for the political elite or for the people, but I tend to think it's more for the people because this offer is, I'll read you the report. United States offers Georgia support in exchange for democracy and is going to impose sanctions against pro-Kremlin politicians. The United States is going to offer Georgia support in exchange for changing its anti-Western rhetoric and abandoning its anti-democratic course. The proposal discussed the possibility of visa liberalization for Georgians, as well as economic and military aid, provided Georgia makes significant progress in strengthening democracy. The same bill provides for imposition of sanctions against Georgian politicians associated with the adoption of the Foreign Agents Law. The thing is, the United States is ready to offer economic and military aid. That's the key point here. To Georgia, a country not in NATO and not in the European Union. That is a very generous offer. What do they want in return? Democracy. A movement towards democracy. Of course, the political elite who is right now accepting the Russian law, the Foreign Agents Law, is not going to do it because they are fully pro-Russia. They're led by a pro-Russian oligarch and all of the money comes from pro-Russian sources. So this offer is not for the politicians or the political elite. It's for the people. But what can the people do if the politicians steer the country into Russian hemisphere? Let's be honest. Well, this is the United States offer to the people that rise up, come to the barricades. Now it's time to take up strength, take up in force and change the political system in the country. Unfortunately, as an Estonian, I see it the only way. The protesters have been peaceful. Now, I'm not one to say that they should be violent, definitely not. But I am saying that what needs to be done to change the country and for the people to take the power back from the pro-Russian thieves, that needs to be done. What needs to be done needs to be done. I don't know what it is. That's for the Georgian people to make up. But this offer stands from the United States to the Georgian people if they choose to bring their country back into their hands and guide it towards Europe. Then they will get military and economic aid. My friends, the purge in the Russian Ministry of Defense continues. A third deputy defense minister is fired from Shoigu's team. Shoigu is not the Minister of Defense anymore. Belousov is an economist. He came in without his team. And he's firing Shoigu's team now, one by one. Putin has dismissed Yuri Sadavenko from the post of Russian Deputy Defense Minister. Sadavenko has been working with Shoigu for 30 years in the Defense Ministry. He was the head of his administration. So this purge even touches people who have done decades of work for the Russian Ministry of Defense. This means Putin is focusing on a very long-term war. He's clearing up the house. He's reshuffling the power structure. Now, it won't save him in the end. Also, what does it tell to us that he appoints an economist to the Ministry of Defense? It says that he's out of money. Otherwise, you would have a military man or other loyalist like Shoigu running it, who throws money at the problem. And he has been doing that for 2 years. But now, wallet is empty. Gazprom is falling. So you got to have an economist who knows how to cut budget. As the head of the Ministry of Defense, the biggest spender in Russia right now, the Ministry of Defense. You gotta cut it. And if you cut it, you will lose ground in Ukraine. You will lose weapons production. So this is what it says to us without saying it. You gotta read between the lines on that one. And now, my friends, my favorite part of the video, Artur, the name butcher, is back. I'm gonna butcher some names of people who support this channel monthly. Buy Me a Coffee monthly members. Now, this has been going on for years, and if you're new to the channel, get ready, because I'll be butchering your name to oblivion. Tilman Eikfelder. Kristaps Liepainieks. Oh my god. Liepainieks. What is happening with your name? Bob. Oh, Maria Franca. Sean Lester. David. Thank you to these monthly members of Buy Me a Coffee. If you like my channel, then you know what to do. Until my next video, my friends, Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.